Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from beautiful Waitsville, Vermont, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to snowy Vermont.
Waitsville.
We are here in...
Sounds like...
Waitsfield. What?
Okay.
Waitsfield, Vermont.
Waitsville sounds like something like, like a beat.
Take your last train to Waitsville.
I think it's more like, that's like Waitsville, Daddy-o. It's like, no way, I'm out here. Something like that.
Well, what's great? Because sometimes when you're a grihasta and you're like, I want to go to somewhere that I'm not just surrounded by a lot of crazies, and we found a devotee bed and breakfast up in Waitsfield, Vermont. And it's our good friend Srinivas, who's long-time devotee, and Kelly Skinner lives 30 minutes away, so she's joining us here live. And Damodar Priya is here with her daughter Amalini. These are regular Zoom people, and we stayed up late night with the kids. I'm taking the kids snowboarding this week, and we stayed late night playing. Ever play Celebrity, that game where you write down all these names on a piece of paper? It's like a party game.
On your forehead or something like that.
It's something like that, but not. But anyway, we did a Vedic version of the Celebrity game. Okay. So you got to write down thousands of different names from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, any name, and then you got to pick it out of a hat, and you got to, with your team, you got to guess it. So if it's sort of like Drishtajumna, it'd be like, okay, he was born of fire. He was, the sister of Draupadi, the brother of Draupadi, and then someone will say Drishtajumna, and then you get that one. And you go to the next one. You see how many you can get in a minute. Super fun game. When you make it Krishna conscious, you walk out of that game going, oh man, except Kelly Skinner. She was just like, I know nothing. I was defeated by your 7-year-old son. We're kicking her out of Kelly and the cartels if she doesn't up her game. It was like being on the hot seat. Yeah.
For a whole night.
For the whole evening, yeah. But it was fun. And so we're up here.
All right.
So did you enjoy quiet, muted Raghunath at internet connection?
I like having Raghunath around.
Because if you were on the show yesterday, my internet was freezing me. They're like, oh, I like this. Very controlled.
I thought you just froze right there.
Yeah. So I was sort of half on the show yesterday and half on the show. But it looks like we have a good internet connection today.
Seems okay.
I will be putting in my 2 cents, butting in, cutting you off like usual. Just how you like it.
I'm going to set some guidelines today because we got to move if we're going to get this done by the end of the year.
You're laying guidelines down? Why can't I lay guidelines down? Here's the guidelines I have for you, Kaustubha. I tell a joke, you laugh. Okay? How about that? That's my guideline today.
As long as you limit the jokes to a certain number each show, I'll cooperate with that.
You know what? It's important. Laughter is a medicine, Kaustubha.
I like to laugh, Fergo.
I know. He's very, very...
So, are you ready? Let's get started. All right. Hold on, Mara, do you have any announcements?
Bhakti Recovery Group. The men meet today at 11 a.m. and the women at 2 p.m.
The old men and women separated day.
Yeah, there they go. The patriarchal thing we got going here. The women are not allowed in the men's meeting. Don't try to get into our men's meeting.
It goes both ways.
Okay. Goes both ways. Men cannot go into the women's meeting. All right. Is that it? There's an asana class today, isn't there?
No, but there is one tomorrow. Trevor Vaughn does his Wednesday class at 8 a.m.
We love Trevor. He's a regular other. All right.
Okay.
I've got nothing clever to say. Did you see my mic stand, though? Can you see this? It's a glass. It's like a glass of water because I forgot my stand.
Okay.
It's hard to pack up and be on the road.
Raghunath just had to find some diversion. We're about to start. It's like, let's go, Raghunath. Come on.
You know what? I like to talk to people.
We'll talk about
Bhagavatam. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Madatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer obeisances at their lotus feet.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. Mara, we are in Canto 3.
Chapter 31, text 1.
Chapter 31, text 1. Description by Lord Kapila of adverse fruitive activities. That means
wrong. That is absolutely incorrect. You said it with a lot of conviction.
Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. What is that supposed to mean, the movements?
Well, we heard about the adverse activities, which was like through my action. Adverse activities is just another way of saying bad karma, right? That was last chapter.
Activities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it means I acted in ways that were adverse to my spiritual development. I acted in ways that were adverse to the development of my true nature arising. And then there are the reactions to that. So that's karma. It's action and reaction, right? So we heard about that last chapter.
And it's placing responsibility on the doer of the activities.
Correct.
Not on some sadistic God punishing you for things that aren't fun.
That's right.
We're choosing to act out of the boundaries, out of the parameters, passing the guardrails, etc. Exactly. We're paying for it.
And we're paying for it. So we heard about how that plays out in the course of one's life. You know, and we read about that, all the struggles one goes through. And then you know, really what that last chapter really had to do with it was like, kind of like, I seek my enjoyment. I seek it from, let's say, especially from my family members, right? Sexually, emotionally, and so on. I'm looking for happiness. I've turned my back to God. I'm looking for my happiness through these people. Bhagavatam's saying that formula is flawed, right? You should turn back and understand those people in terms of your relationship with God. So I'm not trying to derive my happiness from them, but together we're reconnecting with God, which is the source, Rama, right? The source of all happiness. So, but once you adopt that flawed formula where you're looking to your spouse, you're looking towards your children, you're looking towards your extended, you know, connections, or we could say attachments, right? For your happiness, you're entering into the realm of suffering. And what that miscalculation, it begins to like snowball, right? Like I need to gain money now to support this family. And now I start to think of others as not my family. If my activities harm them in certain ways, I don't worry about it because I'm really looking after these people. And in this way, I'm starting to accrue bad karma. And then you start to pay for it. And then it was describing in the last chapter how even then, when you can't maintain them anymore, then they start to look at you differently. And then, you know, and it was just this, you know, then we had someone dying, right? Like kind of dying in a confused, disturbed, attached state. Okay, now what happens? The movements of the living entities now means where do you get moved to, right? Now we're going to talk about, yesterday talked about the life and death of the materialist. And today's the rebirth of the materialist. We're going to hear about what life is like in the womb, what it's like to get pushed out of the womb, where it goes from there. We also hear some really fascinating prayers within the womb in this chapter.
The child in the womb has some children in the womb are conscious of their previous life and their previous choices.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like trying to like, okay, I'm going to man up. Even though I'm a little baby, I'm going to man up and figure out, enough of this. How do I move forward?
I want to turn back.
Yeah.
But then you're born and it's not so easy.
Yeah.
So texts 1 through 11 are going to deal with the jiva's entrance, growth, and the sufferings they endure in this world. The first 4 texts talk about the stages of the development of the embryo. 1 through 4. Why don't you read that, Raghu?
Text 1, the personality of Godhead said, under the supervision of the Supreme Lord, and according to the result of his work, the living entity, the spirit, the soul, is made to enter a womb of a woman through the particle of male semen to assume a particular type of body. Text 2, on the first night, the sperm and ovum mix, and on the 5th night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum. And after that, it gradually turns.
You really resisted the urge to speak.
I'm meditating, like, okay, a plum, like this, in what way? The color, that it's got a pit in it. I was like, what it makes it plum-like? And after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg, as the case may be. Next 3. In the course of a month, a head is formed. And at the end of 2 months, the hands, feet, and other limbs take shape. By the end of 3 months, the nails, fingers, toes, body, hair, bones, and skin appear. Do the organ of generation and the other apertures in the body, namely the eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, and anus. It's quite fascinating how they knew this stuff.
Text 4.
Within 4 months from the date of conception, the 7 essential ingredients of the body, namely chyle. What's chyle? Is that an English word?
It's a milky fluid consisting of fat droplets and lymph. It drains from the lacteals of the small intestine into the lymphatic system during digestion.
Yeah, there you see.
It's real word.
Mara's like, I'm keeping this job. She's like ready now. Like,
she's like, he's going to screw up chyle. I know it.
That was awesome.
Is it pronounced chyle or chili?
No, it's like
she's born with chilies.
I think it's pronounced ki.
These are the 7 dhatus that are being.
Well, these are the 7 dhatus that are spoken about in Ayurveda. Okay,
correct. Yeah.
Namely, chili, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, semen come into existence. Then semen comes into existence. Then,
yes, apparently.
Okay. End of 5 months, hunger and thirst make themselves felt. And at the end of 6 months, the fetus enclosed in the amnion begins to move on the right side of the abdomen.
Okay, so now we've heard about the development of the embryo in the uterus there, and these next verses, this is like, now we're going to hear like text 5 through 11 talk about the suffering that one, now the child is like conscious, right? It's awakening now in these later months. I think after 7 months or so.
By the way, the beauty of the Bhagavatam is it pulls no punches. It's and we know this if you study this with us. It strips away the filters, the sunny filter, the filter that takes away all my wrinkles, the Photoshop we put on life, and makes it like we're very raw in what it is. Like yesterday, you were talking about what's the Instagram? Nature is Metal Instagram account. We're like, oh, look at that little bird. Oh, how beautiful that little bird. Oh no, here comes a hawk. Oh, I love hawks. They're auspicious. Oh, the hawk is chewing the head off that other beautiful bird. It's like it takes what is beautiful and turns it into like what is really happening. Eating and sleeping and mating and defending and the misery, the
brutality of it.
And the brutality of existence. Yeah. And so if some of this sounds a little like raw, it's because the material world is a little raw.
And again, it's the wake-up call, right? It's like saying, hey, wake up, right? There's serious troubles. There's problems with the cycles of birth and death that we're stuck in. And we're going through these cycles. And, we forget about what it's like to be in the womb. And that's going to be talked about. But imagine, it's not easy, right? Once you become aware, there's all kind of problems in there. and we're going to hear about them now.
Yes. Text 5.
Yeah.
Deriving its nutrition from the food and drink taken by the mother, the fetus grows and remains in that abominable residence. Right? It's like, well, what's wrong? It's not abominable. It's beautiful. Kaustubha. Residence of stools and urine, which is the breeding ground of all kinds of worms. And what do they mean?
All true.
Worms.
There are worms in the uterus, pinworms. Look at, I did some research, pinworms.
You're up researching pinworms at 4 a.m.
I was actually.
Pinworms.
Does this act? But yeah, I mean, and it's not in every case, but it's saying that this is a real thing. And imagine what it's like to be that tender little baby awakening in the womb.
They are tender.
And there's worms in there that are just like, oh, look at this, delicious, and they start to bite you, and your skin is totally tender, and it's the Bhagavatam's telling us that this is a real thing. It's a suffering condition.
Okay.
And the child, its own urine and stool can end up in that amniotic fluid. So
sure.
Now that's just a breeding ground for these parasites and so on.
Okay. Bitten again and again all over the body by hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of the tenderness. He becomes unconscious moment after moment because of this terrible condition, right? Like if you're in a lot of pain, the natural reactions of the body is that you shut down. When people get into like a torturous situation, the body miraculously releases its own pharmacy to help black out the pain. We don't think of it like that. We really sort of romanticize the birth process. But this is
tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs or food that is too salty or sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pain, which are almost intolerable. Dr. Kaustubha.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this? Well, spicy food affect the child?
I did a little research on this, and I it was
like
a
big
almost,
morning, didn't you?
And I found that it seemed like most of the articles were drawing from the same studies, the same research, but they were all saying it like this. I was really trying to, read between the lines and figure the whole thing out, and they were all saying like, good news. People used to think that if you ate spicy foods, it could have an adverse effect on the child. But the fact is that it in no way, studies show that it in no way affects the development of the child. And I was like, well, hold it. Okay, maybe like the child doesn't become deformed from it, but that doesn't mean the child's not suffering because of it. And sure. It was describing that the different types of food that you eat, that the flavors of that food pass in through the amniotic fluid. And it affects, they're even saying if you eat a lot of different flavors that the child develops a more like expansive palate when it grows up.
It's interesting how when they put up articles or even scientific studies, like, great news, we've now discovered that this is true. We used to think that was true, but now we know this is true. And then they update it again. Oh my God, we used to think that this is true, but now we know that this is true. And they just update it on a regular basis without an apology. What are you kidding? I just worked so hard studying in my science class. I got an A, and now you're telling me the world isn't flat? Oh, come on.
That apology is important to you, Raghu, huh?
The apology, why? The apology is admitting like we don't know much, but we're speculating. We're thinking this. For now, we're going to say this, but we're open to things changing. Because almost like it's part of like that scientific community is like a deep woven arrogance of I can know. Really?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved. There's funding and there's reputation. And, I published a whole book about this. I can't go back on it now. And, all that kind of stuff.
Right. And it's almost like just go in there with a little bit more of this is what we're feeling. This is what we're thinking. This science just came in. And, science is always, there's a lot of, just like in a divorce, there's always two sides to an experience, right? And so there's different sciences happening at once. Follow the science. Come on. That's one person's lab. There's so many different scientists going at these things with different perspectives.
Raghunath's message to the world of science. Come on, guys. Just be a little bit more open-minded here, right? I'm kidding.
Hey, right? Do you remember when Follow the Science was like cigarettes are good for you? Coca-Cola is like an antidepressant. what's that stuff they put in insulation? I just was talking about
Asbestos.
Asbestos is the breakthrough. A breakthrough. Follow that science.
It's great for our safety, right?
It's great for our safety.
Yeah.
You know what my future prediction is, people? Toothbrushes.
Okay.
I've been saying the fluoride thing for a while, and the chlorine thing. Toothbrushes. It's going to end. Germs. Give 20 years. They're going to be like, what were we thinking?
Back to
it's like the filthiest thing we've been putting in our mouth on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, the twig is you just use a new one every day, right?
Twigs. It's going to get back to antiseptic twigs. We're always going back. We're scraping tongues. We're figuring this stuff out. Do I have to think of everything, Kaustubha?
Sometimes we depend on you like that, Raghunath. Okay. How about text 8?
Placed within the amnion and covered outside by intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen. His head turns towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow. It's like being crammed in a car, you know?
Yeah.
The child thus remains just like a bird in a cage without the freedom of movement. At that time, if the child is fortunate, right? There's not every child, but if they're fortunate, they can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births.
Whoa.
And they grieve. Well, you know about it, because what is keeping us from remembering our birth is just the vrittis stirred up in the mind. So there must be a time in that womb where the mind is incredibly peaceful, where you just have a tunnel into your last
7 months. You had about 7 months just of quiet.
Right? Sitting in meditation, practically, that child in the womb. And now some of them have this clarity of their previous births. Here's the deal, people. I don't know this is true. I'm observing, I'm hearing from this book, but we're saying we're open to it. It could make sense. We're piecing this together. The Bhagavatam speaks in authority. We're the teachers of the Bhagavatam. I think it's important to say that we don't know this. This is what the Bhagavatam is teaching. There are certain children who can remember the past 100 lives because they're sitting like that.
But look at what it says. What says immediately after that. In other words, imagine if we could look back at our past 100 lives from a zoomed out perspective. What would be our emotion? What would we feel? And see what it says.
And grieves wretchedly.
In other
what
words,
is the possibility of peace of mind in that condition?
So if we could actually zoom out and understand, oh my God, I've been turning my back from the one who's so kind and loving to me, trying to find some happiness in a world without him.
They have some spiritual revelation in the womb.
I've been going through these cycles where I'm hurting other people, I'm hurting myself, I'm completely misguided, and it's caused me so much suffering. And being in this womb like this and suffering this, I've been doing it again and again and again. What am I doing with my life? It's like hitting that rock bottom kind of thing. You're like, well, what am I doing? And you begin to feel a deep sense of repentance here.
Okay.
Text 10.
Yeah, what is the okay.
10.
Thus endowed with the development of consciousness from the 7th month after conception. Endowed with the he was always conscious, but what does this mean? Thus endowed with the development.
No, the child was kind of unconscious through the first 7 months. It's like in a, like in some kind of state of sleep. Okay. Now it's becoming aware. Oh my God, I'm in the sack. It's kind of waking up to its experience.
At that time, the child, if he's fortunate, the child is tossed downward by the airs that press the embryo during the weeks preceding delivery. Like the worms born of the same filthy abdominal cavity, he cannot remain in one place.
He's getting it's a claustrophobic in there.
He's getting a little claustrophobic. He's tossing and turning. What, right? When you get him a little conscious. Mm-hmm. He's not happy in there, not a happy camper. The living entity in this frightful condition of life, bound by 7 layers of material ingredients, prays with folded hands. The baby is sort of praying, isn't he? Mm-hmm. With folded hands, appealing to the Lord who has put him in that condition.
Okay, now come the prayers within the womb, and there's a lot. These are prayers we could all chant at any moment, like at any time in our life.
Do we need to assume the fetal position to pray them?
It helps, actually. Yeah. Why don't you do it right now, Robert? And so text 12 through 14, there's a long series of prayers. Text 12 through 21 are the prayers by the by the little baby in the womb. And but text 12 through 14 deal with like, I take shelter of you. Although you're here with me, you're unaffected. Like, I'm going through all this crazy suffering and you're just sitting there unaffected by it. I need to reconnect with you. So text 12 through 14.
The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead. That must be a pretty evolved baby to say that. That means they were already on a spiritual path for a long time.
Some fortunate. What it said, fortunate soul, right?
Okay, so this is probably a evolved yogi,
right? And they're getting that vision now, right? They're being granted that vision of
what the hell have I done?
All I've been going through.
Yeah. I take shelter of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities.
Which we read about last chapter, the adverse karma.
I, the pure soul, appearing now bound by my activities, right, your karma, am lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangement of Maya, illusion. I offer my obeisances unto him, who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He is unlimited, but he is perceived in the repentant heart. He's perceived in the repentant heart. To him I offer my respectful obeisances. Text 14.
So he's unlimited. He's everywhere, but we're not perceiving him. But when one says, what have I done? What the hell am I doing? You begin to perceive him.
Text 14. I'm separated from the Supreme Lord because of my being in the material body, which is made up of the 5 elements. And therefore, my qualities and senses are being misused, although I'm essentially spiritual. Because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental to material nature and the living entities, because he is devoid of such a material body, and because he is always glorious in his spiritual qualities, I offer my obeisances to him. Text 15. The human soul further prays. The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for existence on the path of repeated birth and death. This conditional life is due to his forgetfulness of his relationship with the personality of Godhead. Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can he again engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord? 16. No one other than the person of Godhead as the localized Paramatma, or the super soul, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. He is present in 3 phases of time, past, present, and future. Therefore, the conditioned soul is engaged in different activities by his direction. And in order to get free from the threefold miseries of conditioned life, we have to fully surrender to him only. 17. Now it's going to get pretty. Fallen into a pool of blood, stool, and urine within the abdomen of the mother, his own body scourged by the mother's gastric fire, the soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, "Oh my Lord, when shall this wretched soul be released from this confinement?" Whew. It's a whole new version of the child in the womb. My dear Lord, by your causeless mercy, I am awakened to consciousness. Although I'm only 10 months old, for this causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the friends of all fallen souls, there is no way to express my gratitude but to pray with folded hands. Text 19. The living entity in another type of body sees only by instinct. He knows only the agreeable and disagreeable sense perceptions of that particular body. But I have a body in which I can control my senses and can understand my destination. Therefore, I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whom I have been blessed with this body, and by whose grace I can see within and without.
Now these next couple texts are interesting because it's like, even though the child is in such a suffering condition, it actually begins to pray like, I don't even want to get out because I know the dangers of falling into illusion as soon as I get out. And so even though it's a suffering condition, it's appreciating its clarity of vision right now, and it doesn't want to lose that clarity.
Right. It's like a person who's very God conscious. They have a healthy fear of Maya. I have a healthy fear. Okay, I'm going to do, I'm going on, try to stay away from trigger places, trigger people, trigger situations. People are concerned about going home for the holidays. It was like a thing because there's a healthy fear of Maya. And so, yeah. Therefore, my Lord, although I am living in a terrible condition, did I just read that? No, I do not wish to depart from my mother's abdomen to fall again and again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy, called Deva Maya, at once captures the newly born child, and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continual birth and death, begins. Yep, it's danger out there. Therefore, without being agitated by anyone, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nescience with the help of my friend, clear consciousness.
That's clear intelligence.
That's your good friend, clear. Yeah. Right? We can have clear consciousness or clear intelligence, or a foggy one where we make poor choices. Simply by keeping the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu in my mind, I shall be saved from entering into the wombs of many other mothers for repeated birth and death.
Okay. Now we hear about, so that was like this fortunate being within the womb, gets this clarity, begins to offer prayers, gets this vision of what I've been going through for hundreds of births and deaths. And it had that clarity. Now it's going to be born. And now we're going to hear about the experience of what it's like to come out.
Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, right? There's a
bodily air moving
Apanavayu, downward flowing wind, right, in the body. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble. Head downward, breathless and deprived of memory due to severe agony, right? It's like an intense for everybody involved.
You missed text 22.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lord Kapila continued, the 10-month living old entity, right? It's 10 months, right? Because you didn't find a crack. See, they said 10 months. They start counting from the first day, right? So it's.
Or is it that maybe the months are different too on a Vedic calendar?
Oh, never thought of that too.
Yeah.
Like leap year.
Yeah, they do have that leap month in.
Baby's got to stay in another month. It's Purushottam Mas. The 10-month-old living entity has these desires even while in the womb. But while he thus extols the Lord, the wind that helps the parturition, Mara, propels him forth with his face turned downward so that he may be born. Pushed downward all of a sudden by the wind, the child comes out with great trouble, head downward, breathless and deprived of memory due to severe agony. The child thus falls on the ground, smeared with stool and blood, and plays just like a worm germinated from the stool. He loses superior knowledge and cries under the spell of Maya.
So it's so traumatic that all that clarity and vision is lost now.
Right? It's like you go through a car accident, you wake up, you're like, what happened? I don't know. I just woke up on this operating table. I don't know what happened. I can't remember. So probably for our benefit, the body does that. But then we're born back into this world completely thinking I'm a child and this is my parents.
Text 25.
After coming out of the abdomen, why do they say abdomen? Isn't abdomen stomach or is abdomen the whole?
Abdomen is the general
belly
area.
Okay. We had that conversation once, didn't we?
Did. Yeah.
After coming out of the abdomen, the child is given to the care of the persons who are unable to understand what he wants. And thus he is nursed by such persons. Unable to refuse whatever is given to him, he falls into undesirable circumstances.
I mean, why are babies crying all the time? Because they're uncomfortable. There's something, that's causing them some suffering, and they're trying to communicate it. And people don't necessarily understand what it is.
Right. What's the matter, baby? I'm in pain. These little shoes or these little Air Jordans you put on my tiny little feet are too tight. I remember one of my earliest memories is like, I cry. So this isn't infants, but it was probably 3. One of my earliest memories was I cry every day. Like I cry every day. It's like, I don't go a day without crying. We tend to think like, well, I want to be a child again. Being a child is great. No, it's like being you're filled with fear. You can't get your desires met. You're easily agitated. You're scared of the dark.
Yeah.
In my household, an occasional spank was coming. Dad pulled me around by my ear. Okay. That wasn't at 3 though. That was a little older. 4. Okay. Laid down on after. Okay.
Keep going. Yeah, 26.
Text 26. Laid down on a foul bed. Where'd they put this baby? Laid down on a foul bed infested with sweat and germs. This poor child is incapable of scratching his body. Dude, never thought of that. Right? Yeah. He's incapable to scratch.
You're like soiling your own clothes and your own sleeping place when you're in that condition of life.
And he can't even he's got no fingernails to really even scratch himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the coordination. The poor child is incapable of scratching his body to get relief from the itching sensation. To say nothing of his sitting up, right? You can't sit up. You're just like helpless. He can't stand or he can barely move. In this helpless condition, gnats and mosquitoes and bugs and other germs bite the baby. There it goes with gnats again. Remember my gnat thing yesterday? Mm-hmm. Whose skin is very tender. Just as smaller worms bite big worms, the child is deprived of his wisdom and he cries bitterly.
Okay. Now that was the birth process. Now the childhood process, what it's like being a kid.
Right. In this way, the child passes through his childhood, suffering different kinds of distress, and attains boyhood. I can write a book on childhood distress. There were bullies, there was extortionists, there was like older brothers giving me noogies on a regular basis, torturing me, making me eat like puffy dandelions, practical jokes. Yeah, it was tough. In boyhood, also, he suffers the pain over desires to get things they can never achieve. And thus, due to ignorance, he becomes angry and sorry.
I mean, again, we see it all the time. Kids are crying left and right over the little things because they're experiencing suffering.
Yeah.
From their perspective, it's all they can do is cry.
With the growth of the body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people.
Everybody's got their desires.
Right. That's what they mean by lusty. The lusty people have desires, and then someone who wants the things you want, they become enemies.
Now you're operating in society, and I've got my desires, and you've got your desires, and we're starting to conflict.
Sure. Yeah. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made up of the 5 elements. With this misunderstanding, he accepts permanent things as his own. Right? It goes right into illusion here. Non-permanent things are he thinks are his own, and he increases his ignorance in the darkest region. We start getting good at bad things. Ooh, I like that. We start getting good at bad things. Right?
Yep.
For the sake of the body, which is the source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. Right?
Now you're getting back to the last chapter where now we got the cycle going. Right now you're creating bad karma for yourself. You're in that competitive world, trying to fulfill your desires, conflicting with others, harming others, and creating
envying, fearing others, competing with others, hating others that are also spirit souls lost. All right. If, therefore, the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment or gratification of the palate, right? He again goes to hell as before. So the idea, right? When we talk about sexual or sensual gratification, it means my pleasure is exclusively coming from this body, right? And hopefully in this lifetime, we get to a point where we realize, you know what? There's a limit. There's a ceiling of how much I can enjoy with this body. Once we get a little bit insightful, we start to realize, here's a limit. I can't do so much sensually with the body. Where can I go to find a deeper, lasting, higher love?
Thank you for that.
Higher love.
Well,
Higher
yeah,
love.
it's kind of showing now. This is real important because now we're coming full cycle. We're going back to the last chapter where it's like us creating adverse karma and then suffering for it. And even there it's described like going to quote unquote hell, right? Going through all these hellish circumstances. We see that this child was born, then it began to look around. It began to feel from within, the body and the mind are calling for gratification. In this verse, it mentions sexual enjoyment and gratification of the palate, right? Like two of the most basic and fundamental ways that our body is calling for us to enjoy. And in the course of that, and we're associating with people that are seeing that as the goal of life. And so that's getting programmed into our mind. That's what we're meant to pursue. Now, in doing this, again, it's reinforcing that false narrative, right? That I'm going to find my happiness through externals. And now we start to fight. Now we start
That's
to
the false
now we start to
narrative.
cheat. Yeah.
People are talking about the narrative. That's the false narrative.
That's the false narrative.
This should be on the headlines of the newspaper. Time Magazine, the year in review. There's been a false narrative out there, and the false narrative is you'll find pleasure through the body, and that's the end all. That's a home run. If you can find, no, you've been sold that. There's a deeper, higher love that we have to connect with.
And so this is why the yoga tradition is teaching simplicity, is teaching kindness, right? So that like we can actually have that clarity, not get lost and tied up and stuck in this cycle. So what we hear now, this text 33 is very interesting. It's text 32 described, okay, now due to the association of people that are basically searching for happiness externally.
Looking for love in all the wrong places, one of the previous masters had said.
Yes. I'm starting to compete. I'm starting to conflict. I'm starting to hate. I'm going to start to lose all the good qualities, all the qualities that are more harmonious with my own true nature. I'm starting to lose them one by one. And that's text 33.
He becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, right? Shyness is a good thing. Austerity, fame, forgiveness, right? Sometimes people are proud they can't forgive. You offend me and you're through.
That's right.
Right? No. Control of the mind, right? They become devoid of that as well. Control of the senses. People don't even think of that. Fortune and all other such opportunities. Those are, right? Yeah. Mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence. Those are great fortunes. We lose out on those opportunities.
That's right. This is what we should be guarding, like protecting,
Text 34.
Maintaining, like all of these qualities is like really is the pathway out of suffering. And we start to give them up thinking we're going to find happiness in this competitive, sensual world.
Text 34. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman or man, depending on who makes you dance.
Yeah.
We know what that is. A dancing dog. So right in a circus, you have someone, come on, jump up, jump through the hoop, roll over, good boy, right? So sometimes we get around people, and we know that from relationships. We go around certain people and they can make us do anything. What do you want? What do you want? And we're so, right? Okay. Is that good? Does that please you? Does that make you happy? We throw away ourself, our personal integrity to please some person who may not even have our best interest in mind anyway. So a big part of this whole yoga system is I take back control of my senses and my mind. And instead of giving it away foolishly to anyone who wants to manipulate me, I start, right? We go through this phase of, first we realize I'm being used, and then I don't want to be used. And then we start to realize, no, wait a second, I do want to be used, but I want to be used by Krishna. And Krishna wants to use me. Isn't that interesting? No one wants to be used. but we want to be used as by, right? And we get angry. You used me. You used me. How dare you use me? You manipulated me. Right? But no, we want to be used by Krishna. Let Krishna use us. And then our life becomes perfect. Our bodies are animated by a spiritual force. Mara, do you hear me? You're just nodding there. Like, are you listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
All right, listen. Okay. All right.
Okay. Now, text 35 through 42. There's going to be some heavy stuff here, and we should be careful because it's going to. It's. I think there's a verse here that kind of clarifies as you were that, like, for women, it's it's saying they're talking in a binary gender world here, right? And they're just saying for men it's like this, and then they're going to say, but also for women it's the same thing.
And if you're gay, it's the same thing.
It's true.
If you're a gay man and you're the dancing dog in the hands of another gay man, whatever your sexual gender of choice is, when you give yourself up to that person and they own you, we've probably all experienced something like that. We've lost a piece of our integrity.
Okay, so 35 to 42, Raghu, hit it.
The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a person, I'll just say person, from attachment to another object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to another person, it says woman if you're a man, or to fellowship of...
You just got to read it, Raghunath.
I'll just read it in English, and then you put in your own gender, whatever you're attached to, right? The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman, or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. So, right, you can replace woman with man or whatever you're attracted to, because the sexual potency is the most drive probably behind the human being. It is the generating. It's the reason why people are going to the gym. It's the reason why you're combing your hair. It's the reason why we're working out, doing push-ups, putting on makeup, shopping. It's all based on that.
Going to work, earning money and all that.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't there, we'd all probably be sleeping in. It'd be sleep in Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're waking up because there's a force inside us. Freud said this too. It's a generating push. So when you can step out and say, no, I'm going to control this. I'm going to control this potency. You become a very powerful person.
Now to show just how powerful this force is of attraction, sexual attraction to form, he's going to give we're going to hear a very important example here. Text 36.
At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind. What's a hind?
I assume it means a female deer.
Deer?
Yeah,
okay.
Like a doe. It's a deer, a female deer.
Ray.
Okay.
I'm Ray. Okay.
37.
Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayan is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of a woman or whomever you're attracted to. So only Narayan isn't attracted, is not pulled like that. Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of a woman or whomever by the mere movement of her eyebrows. Can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip. Isn't that true? Sometimes I can be standing there like really thinking I'm really smart, and then someone will just go like this. And I'm like, oh, duh. Me? It's amazing how much illusion we can put in. You put it in a moment.
Keep going, Raghu.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you were going to. Okay.
No, but my point was read all these verses and then we'll comment on them.
I got you. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman or person. For such a person is declared in the Shastra, the sacred literature, to be the gateway to a hellish condition for the advancing devotees, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep reading. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
The woman or man created by the Lord is the representation of Maya. And one who associates with such Maya by accepting service must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like the blind well covered with grass. So the wells, unlike the European wells that come out of the ground with the stones that you've all seen in cartoons, right? They just dig holes in India. And then when the well goes dry or the village moves, the grasses just grow over them. And we actually know a person who's walked into a, you can just walk and you don't even see it and you fall into a well and then you can't get out. Your legs are broken. Yes. Keep reading, right?
Yeah, you could just, it's impossible.
Just keep going until, okay.
Yeah.
41. A living entity who as a result of attachment, attachment to a woman, man, in his previous life has been endowed with the form of a woman.
You're trying to you just read the verses as they are, Raghunath. We've made
A
our
living
point,
entity
and the Bhagavatam
who-
is going to make its point.
Okay. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth and progeny, house and material assets. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer.
Okay. So even here, there's just a bit of that psychology. Especially men are looking for physical gratification in women, and women a lot are looking for security from a man. It's a generalization, but there's truth in it, and it's saying both are dangerous.
And they're saying that by meditating on that, you attain that form.
That's right. In their next life.
Okay.
Please continue.
Text 43. Due to this particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly. In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. When the eyes lose their power to see color and form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, the physical body, the place where perception of object occurs, is rendered incapable of perceiving. That is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth.
And
Therefore,
one final two texts here are it's going to give us. Now look back on this. Try to understand things clearly and allow it to inform how you live.
Okay. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give away to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose, endowed with the right vision and strength by bhakti or devotional service, and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity. That's where pessimism is useful.
Right.
One should relegate his body to the illusory world through his reason. Thus, one can become unconcerned with this material world. Boom.
Okay. So that's, that kind of wraps up like what these two chapters are all about. We're going to talk about material life. We're definitely going to put a negative spin on it, right? Because the fact is we tend to ignore the negative. We try to avoid the negative. We try to avoid the subject of death. When we talk about birth, we talk about it as if it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. But actually for the child, it's a really difficult thing. Right. So let's think about this and look how we get trapped in cycles of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. I'm being born as a man. I'm being born as a woman. I'm going through childhood again. I'm going through sometimes I'm going to different species. Let's realize it. Let's zoom out so that we can see it. Bhagavatam's helping us see it. And then let's use that understanding to strengthen our conviction, right? I'm going to have a pessimism, I'm not overall pessimistic, but I'm pessimistic to the idea that happiness will be found through externals. And that pessimism is realism. I have a powerful spiritual optimism. So let me bounce the two in my perspective, right? Let me keep both in mind as I move through this world so that I can, with my reason, I can move forward and free myself from the bondage that I've been in. All right. We ran overtime.
Went a little overtime. Also topping into shelter lyrics here. Here we go again. We get a track. We get lured in based on beauty. Love soon dies.
Yes.
Like that one?
Excellent.
Right? We get lured in by beauty, by the externals, and they're trapped in the web of illusion. We've all been there. Come on. Love is blind, they say.
True.
Based on externals, love is blind.
True.
Mary, you got any takeaways for us? There, you're sitting there as if in meditation in the womb yourself.
I do have
Little
takeaways.
hands in your thumbs.
Being eaten by pinworms.
I thought there were earthworms in the womb.
If you're looking outside for happiness, you'll only find suffering.
Yeah.
We should have a healthy fear of Maya.
Yeah.
Don't get good at bad things.
That's a good one. Don't get good at bad things. Get good at good things.
And get bad at bad things.
Get bad at.
There's a limit to sense enjoyment with the body.
Yep.
We've been sold a false narrative. Find a higher love.
Bring me a higher love. Help.
Take back control of your senses and mind. Let Krishna use us.
There you go.
Looking for love in all the wrong places. Looking for love in Oh, I tell you, there's so many good songs out there that are fully Krishna conscious.
And there's
Thanks
so
everybody
much-
for joining us.
I was going to say
The
there's so
whole
much better.
last chapter should have been called Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places.
Okay.
There's probably a country western song for every chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
There may be. We should work on that.
Yes, that's a good research project. Harshal Gore, you're on that, okay? You seem like a country music follower. He's like, no, we don't even know what that is. Thanks, everybody, joining us here. We're going to be broadcasting live from Vermont, and it's snowing out, which means powder. This is Raghunath trying to enjoy the material world. I'm going to come back with like a shattered femur. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Knock on wood. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. We are 7 a.m. this week, so thanks for everybody getting up early. We had, a big amount. We had a lot yesterday at 8 o'clock. We had over 100, like 12 or something. And if you want to join us on Zoom, you too can join Zoom. Go to email wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com and write for Mara, and she will send you a secret package with a gift and special codes to get into our exclusive club. If you like what we're doing, you want to support us, means a lot to us, you can join our even more secret club. Once you get into this secret club, you get into another secret club, and that is called the Patreon Party. You can join that by going to patreon.com/wisdomofthesages and show your appreciation, because if you love the show, love is in action. So you go there and you make a monthly donation for whatever you like. And we're very, very grateful for it. Thanks so much, everyone who's on that Patreon team. It makes this show happen. Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm glad it's here. It saved my life many times. Take what you can from this, apply it to life, and then it becomes wisdom, and life becomes perfect. Shall we dance?
Let's do it.